Good example, we have looked at the overview of methods of data collection, and we have seen there are basically two sources of data. One is primary source and the other one is a secondary source. Under primary source, we have seen that there are major ways of data collection, which is grouped under three methods. One is observation, the another one is interview, and the third one is questionnaire. So let us look at the primary sources data collection methods one by one. So let us look at this video presentation, the observation as one of the methods of data collection for primary sources. Under this one, I'll be dealing with what is observation and what are the types of observation, how do you record observation, and some of the limitations of using observation as the data collection method. Observation is basically, you can say, a systematic or a selective way of watching or listening to an interaction or phenomenon. So basically, if you want to do some kind of research, and if you do not want people to tell their perception, sometimes people cannot tell their perceptions very nicely or very clearly. In that case, observation is the only method that you can apply. So when you are looking at observation, we're not looking at people's perception. We're just observing the interaction between themselves, interaction between the people and the environment, interaction between the environment itself, and we are even looking at the phenomenon taking place in that study area. So just watching and listening to the interaction is what observation is all about. We are not interfering anything else, and sometimes we may interfere, and that's one part of observation. We'll be looking in that in next slide, but generally speaking, we're not looking at interacting to know the people's perception or people's perspective. We are just interacting in order to just observe how it is to be interacted with them, but not noting what is the perception or perspective of the people. So observation is very useful when full or accurate information cannot be got from questioning, and sometimes the people you are asking, they do have answers, but they cannot tell the answers clearly. Sometimes they do have answers, but they do not want to cooperate, and in that case, the kind of answers that you get may be biased. So the only solution that you have is to observe them and to get information from the observation. Like I said, when you are looking at observation as one of the methods of data collection, we are not looking at the perception of the individuals or perception of the subjects that we are looking at. We're just observing the phenomenon and the interaction that's being taking place in that study area. So there are two kinds of observation. One is called as participant observation, and the other one is called as non-participant observation. Participant observation is when you are participating in the group that you want to observe. For example, you want to know how it is to be a farmer that's being affected by human-wildlife conflict. So in that case, you're studying a group of farmers who are being really impacted by the human-wildlife conflict. So in that case, you normally join them, you participate with them equally, and then you try to observe what's actually going on, and you try to note down. And they can have the knowledge that you are a researcher and you are participating to observe the interaction, or you do not want to let them know. So that's on you again. So with or without letting them know that they are being observed. So the other one is non-participant observation, where you're just watching the group of you as a researcher, you're just watching the groups of individuals or group of subjects or the study area, and you're not exactly participating in that group that's being observed. So it's like again, you want to know the life of a farmer for 3 months. So in that case, you do not participate equally as a farmer, but as a researcher, you just observe how it's to be a farmer. What are the things, what are the chores that they have to carry out daily. You just observe and you just put it down. So observation can be done in natural setting as well as in controlled setting. In natural setting, you do not do anything else. You just observe. You just let it happen naturally without any stimulus. But in controlled situation or controlled setting or environment, you are giving some stimulus, or you're introducing some stimulus, or you are giving some inputs for the group to react, and that reaction is being observed again. So in controlled, you're not exactly participating in the observation itself. You're not interacting with the people, but you're just stimulating the group in order for them to react, and that reaction is something that you want to study. So that's natural and controlled environment of observation. So basically, this slide says that the observation is divided into two kinds. One is participant observation, and one is the non-participant observation. Participant observation, where as a researcher you participate in the group that you want to observe, and you observe how it's like to be in that group, and based on that you observe you fulfill your objectives of data collection. In non-participant, you do not participate, but you just observe the group as a researcher. How do we record the observation? So, for example, you're either participating in the observation or you're not participating in the observation, but you still have to record. So recording is a pivotal step, because the way you record determines whether it's qualitative or quantitative again. So if you're recording in a narrative or verbatim, verbatim meaning the exact sentence or exact words that are being that you exactly saw there, and you just want to reflect exactly like that in words. So you can also do through verbatim or narrative. If it is like verbatim or narrative, or if it is descriptive, then this kind of recording falls under the domain of qualitative. But if the observation is made through categorical or scales, so that is under the domain of quantitative. So the method that you record determines whether the approach is qualitative or the quantitative. The first and foremost method of recording an observation is through narrative recording. Basically, this is basically a description of the interaction in your own words. So basically a narration made from the observation in your own words. What you do in this step is to basically observe the participant or non-participant observation. These groups are being observed, then you note down. That can be done after observation, or when you're observing you can note it down. So two ways: whenever you're observing you can note down, or after you are done with observation, go back to your place, note down. So that can happen at two levels. Then write detailed description, then interpret what was happening in that observation of that group, then you conclude. So the advantage of observation is that it gives us deeper understanding or deeper insight of our objectives. But the disadvantage is that it can be biased on researcher. Researcher may write in his or her own words, so that can be very biased. If the researcher is very amateur or a young researcher, a beginner researcher, he or she may write it differently compared to a researcher who is seasoned or expert. A subjective reflection of research, again by the researcher, can happen. Incomplete recording, meaning like I said, observation notes in narrative recording can be made during the observation itself or after the observation itself. And if you're recording during the observation, you're observing as well as you're writing, some of the points may be missed out. But if you're recording after the observation, some of the points may be again missed because you may not recollect exactly what happened during the observation or during the data collection time. So incomplete recording may take place. Comparability of if there are more than one researcher, so if there are more than one researcher, it's very difficult to compare between the researchers. So that's one of the disadvantages of using narrative recording. The other one is the observation that we make can be made into scales, and lots of researchers, they prefer to make the observation into quantitative research. So in that case, they try to develop scales, and for example, where the moods of farmer who are being affected by human-wildlife conflict, and you can write it at the scale of if you're looking at the mood angry, so you can write it from the scale of 1 to 5, so that's a scale. And happiness, again, 1 to 5, like that you can mention in that scale, and accordingly you can tick those scales. So one of the advantages of before that, so a researcher develops scales, then the scale can be 1-dimensional, 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, based on the need that you have. So 1-dimensional can be like just 1, yes or no. 2-dimensional can be yes, just again yes or no. 3-dimensional can be agree, neutral, disagree. 4-dimensional can be agree, moderately agree, neutral, and disagree, or strongly disagree at the 5th dimension. Like that, then you can record based on that choice that you have, and interpret and conclude. One of the advantages of using scale is because the researcher has dedicated lots of time to make those into scales, and during the observation time, during the collection of data, you do not have to spend much time. So very less time is being required to collect the data, and I do not have to focus on detail recording because there are already choices that you need to just tick during the observation period. The disadvantage is that scales do not provide in-depth or specific information, because you do not have a space to write any other in-depth information that has come out during the observation. You have got very structured choices, dimensions that you need to tick. That's why in-depth information cannot be accurate from the interaction. Sometimes, especially if the researchers are new to observation methods, they tend to forget, or they tend to avoid the extreme, like strongly disagree and strongly agree is being avoided most of the time, and they tend to follow towards like the middle choices, for example, like neutral, or like agree, or just disagree, or just the central choices. If you have 5, then if number 3 is the centralmost choice, then they tend to keep at the central ad most of the time. So they tend to choose central choice most of the time. That's known as the error of central tendency. And sometimes again, there are again some researchers who tend to just take the extreme ones, either strongly agree or either strongly disagree most of the time, and they do not again look at the central part. So that's again a tendency of beginner researchers, or a tendency of a researcher who tend to compare between 2 questions. If the earlier question is being if the earlier question has an answer of extreme tendency, then you may want to again choose the answer of the next question towards again extreme. If question number 4, for example, has the answer that you ticked was just strongly agree. And in question number 5 again, if it is just a relevant question, related question to question number 4, you may want to again tick to strongly agree. So it's being affecting. So this is known as elevation effect. And again, similar to that one, again we have got halo effect, where effect of one question is affecting the other question, similar to elevation effect. But elevation effect, we are looking at just the extreme level. It can either be low, it can either be high. But halo effect is an effect which is which comes from, or which is being influenced by the previous question. That's, for example, this usually happens in area of teaching. For example, a student has done very bad in maths, and so a Dzongkha teacher knows that he has done very bad in maths, and even in Dzongkha, the mindset of the Dzongkha teacher is such that now he has done very bad in maths. Even in Dzongkha, he must have done bad in maths. So that's an halo effect, because effect of one question or effect of one module or effect of one subject is influencing the marks or the choice of the other question, other module or other subjects. So that's known as halo effect. So usually one of the disadvantages of using scale is that there will be halo effect, and you have to know these three effects: error of central tendency, elevation effect, and halo effect during the scale as data recording method. The third one is categorical. Exactly, it's same with the scale. The category is just like some broader term to scale. So, for example, the scale of my mood right now can be the scale of my mood, specifically let's say my happiness right now. My happiness can be divided into 5 scales. Let's say I'm sad. Let's say just happiness. Just 1 to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 1 is least happy, and 5 is most happy. So scale can be from 1 to 5, and scale is just narrowed to just one category, happiness. But in case of category, the category can be a little bit broad. For example, mood. So what is my mood right now? Is it sad? Is it angry? Is it like nervous right now? Or is it very happy right now? So that kind of different kinds of moods can be kept as different categories. A category of animals can be like cat family, ungulates, so reptiles. So that kind of categories can be generated, but scale is a little bit narrowed to one category. For example, if you just look at the cat family. So if you study at cat family, so you want to look at are these cats juvenile, are these cats adults, or are these cats old? So that kind of categories can be made in case of scales, but category is a little bit broad. So the advantages and disadvantages of category and scales are same. And the last one is electronic device. You can use videotapes, you can use audio tapes, you can use other devices to record your observation. And again, the advantage of using the observation electronic devices as one of the way to record observation is that you can see multiple times of that video, so you listen to multiple times for that audio tapes, and you can even invite professionals to view the audio tape or listen to the view the video tape or listen to the audio tape again and again, and you can again ask the comments from the professionals. But the disadvantage is that people may act differently if they know that they are being filmed, or like animals may animals may or may not act differently. But certainly, if you're looking at people, people may act differently in front of camera or other devices. So the actual reading or actual data that you're collecting from these devices may not be exactly reflecting their answers or reflecting their responses. So that effect is also known as Hawthorne effect, Hawthorne, Hawthorne. So we'll be looking at that in next slide. So whenever you're using electronic devices like video camera or audio tape, and you're just putting near some people, they may certainly act differently, and that's known as Hawthorne effect. So you have to again consider this disadvantage, and you have to again try to limit or try to avoid or try to tell your respondents very clearly that they need not be acting differently. They can act naturally, be naturally. You let them feel comfortable. So that's on your part. So all the disadvantages are being listed in the methods of recording. So limitations with observations are basically the limitations with what we had during the methods of recording of observations. So the Hawthorne effect that we just talked about is one of the limitations of the observation. The observer bias is another limitation, because observation is totally dependent on observer or the researcher who is observing that that interaction or phenomenon, and no respondents can express their perception, express their perspective on the topic, and that's something that has to be done everything by the observer itself. So whatever observer does has to be very correct. If the observer is biased, then whole research will turn out differently. So so that's it with the limitations, and all the four things are being repeated again and again during the data recording of observations. So thank you so much on this one. Next, we are going to look at interview and questionnaire.